Welcome your host, Caddy Frank, as she leads discussions about substance use disorder and the journey to recovery. You're listening to Redefining Recovery, a recovery revolution.
Well, good morning, good morning, good morning. Here we are. Not Caddy. This is Cynthia Mungia with Minnesota Recovery Connection. Redefining Recovery, a recovery revolution. Good morning. And I have with me Mr.
Edward Hovelman.
Edward Hovelman, our Director of Bilingual Services here at Minnesota Recovery. And Eddie, today we have such a wonderful, wonderful topic that it's such an important piece for me personally. And so when we were discussing, what do we bring to the table? What's the message for today? I just felt the importance, the need, if not the urgency, to talk about this one particular topic. The spiritual component of recovery. We are what we think. But before we get into that message, because it's such a powerful one and there's so many layers to it, I just want to say good morning to or hello to our listening audience, and just thank you. And I'm just going to turn really quick here, just look at our audience, and I just want to say thank you. I want to take a moment to say thank you. Thank you for being there. Thank you for being present. Thank you for being consistent in listening to our podcast, for engaging and for contributing to the work that we do at Minnesota Recovery Connection. Part of that is the funding that we get from you. Thank you. Thank you, because your funding enables us to continue moving this podcast forward, to continue sending the message of recovery, the message of hope, the message of community. And this message reaches individuals that otherwise we would not be able to reach in our office. This happens through the airways. So I just wanted to take a moment to congratulate you for being that person that enables this message to reach that one individual that otherwise would not be able to get this information unless it's through the airways. So with that, we will get started. And Eddie and I, you've been with me before. We've been on this podcast before, this recording. We talked about a lot of different things, a lot of things in our prior recording. But today we want to take a turn. We want to take it a little bit different. We want to dive deeper into our recovery journey and how that's impacted, how our recovery journey has been impacted by this one component. So for me personally, being a woman in long-term recovery, I've been in recovery now going on 13 years in September. And I get to celebrate that at the Walk for Recovery. Yes. And so
congratulations.
Thank you.
In advance.
And so part of that is recognizing what were the pieces that helped me in my recovery journey. And perhaps when we share our stories, it resonates with someone in the community about what their recovery looked like. And you've been in recovery for a long time, much longer than I have.
21
years.
Just by the grace of God.
By the grace of God. But by the grace of God. And so that's an important part of our recovery.
That's correct.
That's something that you and I share.
That's correct. It's part of and I think they need to be for everyone to have a higher power, to have the spiritual pathway in your recovery, because it's a big or huge part of your recovery, or need to be, because it's the core, it's the center, could be your universe, your energy, your power to keep going every time, to be forward.
So there's many pathways to recovery. And we recognize all of them, and we honor all pathways to recovery. And one of the pieces, very important piece of one pathway to recovery is having a higher power. Another pathway is, it could be the way that you exercise, the way that you eat. You're looking at your physical being, looking at your emotional and your mental being. But there's many different pathways to recovery, and we use those pathways as tools to get us to where we want to go. We may go to meetings. We may have, I don't know, we practice an all recovery meeting.
That's correct.
At Minnesota Recovery Connection.
You can make yoga, you can make meditation, exercise, walking, swimming, riding, sometimes skydiving. Yeah. And it's amazing because some people say, you need to be crazy. And I say, I was crazy when I was doing drugs or alcohol. That way was crazy. Right now, I am feeling in another way. And the first time when I was skydiving was amazing to me because I discovered part of my soul right there.
I imagine that discovery that you had at that moment when you were skydiving and you discovered part of your soul, I can only imagine the sensation of being so small in such a big world and looking at the sky and the expanse of the sky and the power, all the power that's around you, the power that makes the air move, the power and that air that helped you glide through. I cannot even begin to imagine what you were going through because the idea of skydiving mortifies me.
And it's amazing because you are seeing the world, you are seeing the sky, you are in a free fall, and you only have your parachute and God.
And you are at the mercy of your higher power.
Yes.
In that space. So that's why this was so important, because it's a large part of many that are in recovery. Not all, but many individuals that are in recovery, yet it's a topic that we really don't dive deep into, that we don't touch on a regular basis, right? We're looking at our social determinants of health. We're looking at our needs. We're looking at, where we are on a daily, am I getting my basic needs met? Where am I emotionally? Where am I economically? Where am I socially? Where am I physically? So we have all of these questions when we're talking about recovery. And I'm coming from this from a personal place, right? This is something that I personally go through, or I personally ask. But at the same time, I very rarely have a conversation with someone. Well, what about my spiritual components? Where am I with my spiritual piece or my spiritual component or my spiritual quadrant of health? Over the next couple of minutes, we just want to take just this time to unpack part of the discussion that we're going to have today. And I asked you some questions beforehand because I wanted us to really touch on the subject of the spiritual component of recovery. What's the difference between this and religion? Why is this important? And how do we take steps to move into this space as we look at our 4 quadrants of recovery and how we measure that in a recovery meeting, in an all recovery meeting? So a little bit about all recovery meetings. These happen with individuals, for example, that attend a meeting at Minnesota Recovery Connection. Very different than a meeting that you would have at an AA meeting or an NA meeting. They're very different because, again, we honor all pathways to recovery. And so I may go around the circle of friends that are there and I may be asking them, how are you in your quadrants, in your 4 quadrants? And I may get a response, well, I'm kind of doing a 3 right now, or I'm on a scale from 1 to 10. I'm at a 9. I'm really doing really good right now. Or I'm not doing good at all. I'm at a 2, or I'm just struggling all the way around. Today I'm not doing well at all. So when we look at our 4 quadrants and at asking that question, when we get back, I want us to dive into this, specifically the question, what's the difference between the spiritual component of recovery and religion? We want to separate those because it's not the same.
is not the same.
Oh, well, here we are. Cynthia Mungia again with Minnesota Recovery Connections. Recovery, redefining recovery, a recovery revolution. After a certain amount of time, you think you would have that down, but here we are with redefining recovery, a recovery revolution here at Minnesota Recovery Connection. So before we went on break, a question that I asked you, Eddie, was, what is the difference between our spiritual component of recovery and religion? Because sometimes a listener might say, oh, no, here we go. We're going to talk about religion again. No, we're not. We're looking at the spiritual component of recovery in a human being. Many, you and I, we've had our own encounter with our higher power, with a spiritual being that has helped us in our recovery. And so there's a question about that. What was the difference?
Yeah, in my opinion, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Personal.
Personal opinion, and everybody can have one.
Mm-hmm.
The religion is a system.
Mm-hmm.
The religion have a structure, need to be organized, need to be with external situations, textbooks, need to have rules. They need to have traditions. They need to be rituals. They need to have something like you can touch, something like you can see. Mm-hmm. Because the human is in that way. They need to believe in something like
tangible.
Tangible. That's correct. And in the other way, is more personal, more intimate. Is more between the universe with the cosmos, with the nature. Need to be more natural in your own way. You don't need to follow any rules, but they need to be inside of you. But they have a connection with everything, with everybody, with the universe, with the cosmos. You need to be in connection with that.
So as I understand the spiritual component of recovery, according to what you have just shared from your personal belief system, the way you personally see it, it is almost a power that is unseen, but we know it's there. Because the air has tremendous power. We don't see it, yet it's there. So this power, this unseen power, is we can tap into that, bring that out, lean into it as part of our recovery pathway. Or is it something that is internal, God-given? It's there. It may be asleep, but at some point it's awakened. Yours was awakened through your first skydiving experience.
Yeah. The first time when I understand that situation was a veteran, old-timer in a group who was sharing about, hey, Eddie, you was looking for God in the buildings. You was looking for God in the textbooks. You was looking for God in another places. And you need to know your higher power is in your heart, is in your soul, inside you. You don't need to looking for everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
is there. I am totally understand the situation at this point.
It's an internal thing.
Yes.
And it's inside everybody.
But it's inside of everyone. But you need to have the connection at the same point. Without the connection, the recovery is not going to happen.
So we look to many, many different resources for recovery. We look for medication, medicated assisted treatments. We look for group therapies. We look for all recovery meetings. We look for relationships with other individuals that can help us in recovery, because without connection, oftentimes we are not as successful in our recovery as we could be had we had that connection with others, or those experiences, or those supportive measures. When we talked about earlier, Eddie, we talked about the 4 quadrants that we wanted to tap into. Our emotional self, our physical self, our spiritual self, and our emotional self. I'm reminded of a statement that was made. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. As what I think about, I become. And the more I think about something, the more I dwell on that, the more emotional attached I get to that thought, and the more emotionally attached I am to the thought, then I began to do. So as a man thinketh in his heart, or as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. What happens when I'm constantly focused on something? My energy goes to that place. If I'm focused on just this one pathway, one way, my energy flows there. If I'm focused on healthier eating, my energy goes there. If I'm focused on savings, my energy goes there. But what about if I take time to focus on my spiritual self? What would that look like? So then the question for you is, Eddie, why is this so important for recovery for you?
I was thinking in the, and I told you about that, in the behavior. What I think and feel, I'm gonna say. What I'm saying, I'm gonna do. And what I am doing is gonna form my habits. My habits is gonna form my behavior and my character. And my character and actions is gonna form my destiny.
Let's repeat that again. What I think, I will feel. What I feel, I will do.
When I do?
What I do becomes a habit, habitual. I begin to do over and over and over again.
It's going to be my behavior.
And that's my behavior, then it becomes habitual.
Yes.
Those habits form our character. Our character then forms our destiny.
That's correct.
So if we begin with the end in mind, as Stephen Covey used to say, let's begin with the end in mind. Let's look at our destiny. What does our destiny look like to us? Where do we want to be? Where do we want to go? What do we want to see? So rolling that back, then bringing our destiny back to our character. Well, what is my character? What does it look like? How do I behave? How do I interact? What do I believe in? How do I function in that belief? And that is formed by the daily habitual rituals that I have.
Yeah, sometimes your parents is telling you in some way, they are trying to teach you with some love. rough love.
Rough love. So,
And they say, don't have a stupid friends because you are going to be the next stupid.
person.
Or the next person, yes. Please, you need to have a good friends. You need to have a smart friends because you are going to be the next one. And then when you don't have that kind of situation, what is going to be?
Kind of like you are what you eat.
Yes.
You are who you surround yourself with.
And at some point, we need to understand our parents doesn't have a book to be parents, and they are trying to teach you like with love, with compassion, with kindness, with all they have. But we don't understand that in at some point. That's why we start to grow up with anger, with ira, with fear, with like we need more or losing something. And our behavior is changing every time.
Yeah. So you touched on something, a cultural piece. Entre los Latinos, within a Latino household or Hispanic household, however you want to identify, there's just certain components that are prevalent in the home. The way that you treat your children, the way that you speak to your children. I can speak for myself personally. My parents could only give me what they had. They couldn't give me more or beyond what they were taught or what they had, the tools that they had to parent. And those tools, they learned it from their parents and from their parents. And so as a parent, I knew that I did not want to be the parent that my parents were to me. I didn't want to do that to my children. And yet, at some point, there were certain characteristics, there were certain behaviors that were very present, very obvious in the relationship with my children. Your parent said, no seas estúpido, o no te juntes con los estúpidos, y no seas estúpido. Don't be hanging out with stupid people, and you won't be stupid. Right?
Right.
That's what they used. I heard the word moron, which was, it's a trigger word for me. Yet I understood that there was a certain part of my father's recovery that he was going through, that he was learning. And part of that was the way that we treat one another. And all of that rolls back from destiny to character to habits, behaviors, back to how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about others. And all of that is because of those thoughts that are rummaging in our brain. Oh, I'm such a moron.
That's why we need to break
those
circumstances,
those generational circles, those generational beliefs.
Yes.
And so all of that comes back to that inner part of us, our spirit being, our core.
Yeah, you need to be there in the core. If not, nothing is going to change.
And that's where we begin to see the change, is in our core, in our spirit being, in our belief in something greater than ourselves, in a power greater than ourselves, so that I can lean into that power, I can lean into that spirit, so that I can get the healing and the wellness that I need. So that I can change my thought patterns. My thought patterns will change. My emotions will change. My behaviors will change. Those habits will look differently. And those different habits will form a different character. And my character will lead to my destiny. So there is change possible.
That's correct. It could be.
And it has nothing to do with religion.
No, nothing to do with religion.
Because religion is a structure.
That's correct.
Books.
And you need to follow only one way. In the other hand, in the other view, no one is rolling you. No one is...
There's no governance.
Yeah, that's correct. Doesn't have a structure.
A structure.
you can have your connection with the universe or your higher power in so many ways, and no one can judge you in that way or punish you.
Or punish you.
Yep,
for believing what you believe in.
that's correct.
And operating in that belief. So we have a lot of operating systems everywhere within our organizations, within our companies, within our nation. There's operating systems everywhere, and we believe in those operating systems because they have been proven to work. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. We have an internal operating system. And if we look at our internal operating system and we divide it into 4 quadrants, we talked about this: our emotional being, our physical being, our spiritual being, and we said physical, spiritual, emotional, and mental. If we divide those quadrants, or if we look at those 4 quadrants, beginning with the spiritual quadrant as the foundation, and we start looking at getting healing there, because this one is going to inform the other 3. What type of work would you do? What type of work would you look at when you're looking at that spiritual quadrant?
You need to work in your own way to be in connection with everyone, in service, helping, giving, more than receiving, spending your time, your efforts, your knowledgement with others, to have connections, to make connections.
So getting out of yourself.
Yes.
And it not being all about you.
Yeah, I can remember the word in English. Let me think about that, but I'm going to say you in a minute. But
and you can say it in Spanish and we'll work through it.
Selfish? You cannot be selfish? That's the words?
Selfish?
Yeah.
It's all about me.
Yeah.
It's about me.
Because when I was on my...
Your heyday.
Yes. I was selfish. I was thinking only on me. I was thinking only for me. I was thinking, I need everything. I need from you. I need from this. I need from there. Everything need to go to me.
Everything was about you.
Yes.
And you wouldn't stop at anything to get what you needed, what you wanted, because you believed it was about you.
The universe, they need to be around me. Something like that.
Yeah, so everything had to circle around you.
Yes.
And then you had your enlightenment moment. You had your moment of enlightenment, your moment of spiritual clarity.
Yes. When I realized that situation, I say, I need to be in the other way.
The other way. Because
that way is not working. This is the light at the final of the tunnel. When I saw that situation, I say, I'm doing against me.
It's hurting you.
Yes, and it's hurting me.
So your spiritual quadrant, being your foundational piece, that informs your mental. It informs the way you think. Because as a man thinks, so is he. So that once that we start looking at our spiritual quadrant as, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to start there. I'm going to do some work here. I'm going to look at this and what is my belief? What is my core belief? Where am I pulling that spiritual component of me? What does that look like? What do I believe in? Again, nothing to do with religion. It's my core belief, what I believe in. And then that informs my way of thinking. And then I begin to start thinking about things differently. I begin to start thinking about others more than myself. And I begin to esteem others as better than myself. And I begin to serve others.
And at this point, you are changing your behavior, your actions.
So it just one feeds right into the other. And then what happens when we start in that place of giving, of generosity, of service, of thinking of others, being in a higher position than ourselves, not that we're going to diminish ourselves or not that we have a very low self-esteem, that we allow anybody to trample over us. No, it is an act of love, an act of service. then our heart begins to change. And as our heart changes and our behavior changes, our habits change. Another area that we really look at is our emotional being. So then our emotions are tied to everything.
Very cultural at this point. You can say in English for me, los hombres no deben llorar.
Oh, men should not cry. That is a cultural, in many areas, in many places, in many homes, irrespective of the language or the skin color or your, whatever your ethnic group is, whatever your belief is. That's found in a lot of homes. Men should not cry. You should not cry. You're the man of the house. We beg to differ.
Even when you are a child.
Even when you're a child. And we beg to differ.
Yes.
Absolutely. Men do have emotions. And yes, they do need to cry. They do need to cry it out. They do need to express those emotions, because keeping them bottled in only continues to create that cycle of self-destructive behavior. So when we begin to express ourselves emotionally, we begin to talk about what's going on, we begin to explore alternative ways of seeing things. It's amazing. I love hearing my dad talk about things now that he would have never addressed years ago, and acknowledging behaviors now that at that time was just the norm, because that's how he was raised. I love seeing the evolution of this man addressing his emotional self. Then we have the mental. Oh boy, can we talk about mental health? That's an important part of everybody's recovery, because our mental health is tied, oftentimes, many times, if not all the time, it's tied to our substance use, is our mental health. I may be self-medicating. I may have a diagnosis and not even be taking care of that, knowing that I have a diagnosis, but I'm not doing the necessary things to take care of my mental health, my meds, my therapies, so on. All of these impact our physical being. It impacts our health, our physical health. We stay, I would have the tendency to stay in bed longer, stay under the covers, because my mental health was impacting my physical health. Yet all of those, the physical, the mental, the emotional, they're all tied to the spiritual. So if we take care of the spirit man, then we are, just by virtue of doing that, taking care of our emotional self, our mental self, and our physical self.
It's amazing, the change.
The changes.
Yes.
Dramatic. Amazing.
And you can notice in
the life of a human being.
Yeah.
So then my question for you would be, instead of asking, Eddie, what's right with you today? I would ask, Eddie, how's your spirit today from 1 to 10?
Right now, I am on 10.
Right now, you're on 10.
Yes.
Right now, you're at 10.
Yeah. The people don't believe me, but I wake up like 4 a.m. every day, or almost every day, to start with my meditation, with my own way prayers, with 2 words sometimes in my stuff, and obviously to think about my day. But mostly of the time, I am trying to be very thankful with the life, with the universe, with the energies. One day, one lady was asking me about the half cup.
Mm-hmm.
They say, how can you see the cup? Well, I am not seeing only the cup.
Mm-hmm.
I am grateful for half the cup,
Mm-hmm.
for being with half, being with the empty, with the full system, with everything, with you. I am grateful for everyone right now. It's not just the half cup.
Yeah. When we come back from our break, we're going to continue on that topic of gratitude and how we measure our self. I love the music. I just do. I'm just a lover of music all the way around. Well, this is Cynthia with Minnesota Recovery Connection. Recovery, redefining recovery, a recovery revolution. Redefining recovery, a recovery revolution here. And I am just so grateful, Eddie. I am grateful that you were part of today's recording. You were part of today's radio show, podcast.
Yo soy el monito.
And we have been talking about the spiritual being or the spiritual connection as part of our recovery journey. And some of the things that we've looked at has been our 4 quadrants, our spiritual, physical, emotional, and mental. And the difference between our spirituality and when it pertains to recovery and religion, which is not the same. Religion is a structure, it's an organism, it's an organization, it's books, it's teachings, it's policies and procedures. Spirituality is a greater power. It's internal, it's personal, it's individual. It's governed by the way that you see the world and the way that you see your spiritual self. So coming back to the question that we had, Eddie, was how, when you're looking at your 4 quadrants, you're looking at your emotional, your mental, your physical, and your spiritual, and you are going to measure those because you want to see where you're at as an individual. Like, where am I in my journey of recovery in the spiritual area, in my mental area, my physical area, and my emotional area? How do I measure those? What does that look like? And I asked you a question earlier. So instead of asking you, Eddie, what's right with you today? Because today is a very different topic. And our topic was the spiritual component of recovery. We are what we think. So then I would ask you, where are you spiritually? And you're at 10. You were at 10 because you had so many things that you did. You did the work. And your work looked like getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning on a regular, doing your meditation, doing your exercise, whatever exercises those look like. And you set yourself up for the day. And that's how you were able to measure where you are, because you did that initial work early. It's like an artist is able to showcase their art because they did the work behind the scenes of learning, of doing, of trying different color palettes, of different strokes, different brushes. My mom is an artist. And I've seen her paintings. And she may not like some of them, but I absolutely love them because I see the detail in her art. My partner's a musician. I love the final product. But behind the scenes, there's a lot of practicing that goes on. Hours of practicing on the keyboard and strengthening the fingers, finger exercises, stretching the fingers to reach all the keys. Recovery.
Yeah, part of the situations, I know, and I study, and I learn, and I doing in that way. You need to practice every day. The practice, and practice, because we are not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
But every day we need to improve our system, our way. Every day we need to practice because of that.
That's doing the work. That's what we call doing the work.
That's correct.
Is putting all of that and just continuing to practice and continuing to do on a daily basis. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. As we do the work for our spiritual self, it begins to bleed into our thought patterns, our emotions, ultimately our behaviors, that physical response to what we're thinking and feeling, to what we internally believe. And that leads us to our habits and the habitual behavior that we have in our character and our destiny. We are here today, but for the grace of God. And our destiny today is a reflection of what happened years ago, because of the work that we have been doing in our spiritual self. The meditation, the prayer, the reading, the learning, those are things that people on the outside don't see. I don't see what you're doing at 4 o'clock in the morning to work on your inner self. You do not see me working on my inner self at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. Yet, there is an outward expression or an outward evidence of what you're doing at 4 in the morning. Because today you're at a 10. Because your inner self, your spirit self, is well, is healthy. This is an important part of recovery that we often do not talk about. But it's I would say it's a necessary, critical part of our recovery. When we talk about our recovery journey, we're public about it, we share about it. Mine is based on prayer. Mine is based on reading my holy scripture that I read. Yours is based on meditating on what you meditate on. And it's very, very different for many of us. But it's very powerful for all of us. So, when we are now looking at our community, let's talk about the Latino community and spiritual component of that. The faith is huge in the Latino community. Would you say?
Yeah, the faith is... I think we have a little failure. Mm. We have a little scratch in that because we believe. But how can I say? Tú crees en Dios, pero ahora tienes que creerle a Dios.
Ah, I love it. You believe in a God, or you believe in God, but now you have to believe God.
That's the way.
You believe in God, or you believe in your higher power, but now you have to believe your higher power, or you have to believe your God.
Because everything is there, but you are not using the tools.
Okay. Wow.
That's the main idea for me.
Wow. We have everything at our disposal, but we are not using all the tools. And part of that is this is such a fundamental tool that we have in recovery, is our spiritual self. My friend Jeannie says, Cynthia, she calls me Cindy, I am a spirit being having a human experience. I'm a spiritual being having human experience. And with that, we'll end today's podcast, today's recording. Eddie, thank you.
No, thanks to you, Cynthia.
Thank you.
Redefining recovery.
Yes, thank you, Minnesota Recovery Connection, Redefining Recovery Revolution. See ya.